So just a reminder as to what our LAP program is. This is relatively new. This is the second year of our new program. And as a reminder, this is the last year for the local discretionary funding to be distributed. By last year, I mean the upcoming FY24. After FY24, for our new federal funding policy, the funds that previously went into the local discretionary pool will now go into the regional flexible funding pool, which means more funding available for projects that are going to be competitively scored. There are 4 funding sources this year for our regional flexible funding program. They are STBGDA, Surface Transportation Block Grant, Direct Attributable. The Transportation Alternatives Program, Direct Attributable, TAP-DA, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality, CMAQ, and a new funding source, the Carbon Reduction Program. For that, we have 2 years of funding available that have been distributed to us, the FY22 and FY23 funds. In addition to, for those funds in the regional flexible funding pool, which as it stands now is about $5.2 million. We have applications. There are 2 different application forms, one for existing projects. In other words, funding for projects that have already been previously funded, but are running under budget for whatever variety of reasons. And the second one for new projects. As a reminder, our federal funding policy prioritizes existing projects and making sure that we get our current projects done over the new funding for new projects. Finally, for those of you who are eligible, we do have a form for your local discretionary, the amounts. The memo that went out previously shows the amount of funding that each jurisdiction has available in that pot. So please go ahead and let the MPO know through this process how you want to use those local discretionary funds if you have them. As a reminder, all local discretionary funds are STBGDA funds, and all funds through the LAP program do require a 20% match. That's a non-federal match. We usually refer to that as the local match, as the majority of times it is local funds that are providing that match, but they don't have to be local funds. They could be state funds, they could be private funds, and so forth. I see hands up from iPhone. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. So, oh, hey, Nish.
Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. I just didn't know.
I sent an email earlier to you asking, do I need to fill out that form regarding, since we flexed our remaining balance to transit for I sent you a memo earlier regarding flexing.
Right. No, I don't believe so. You can just follow the normal flex procedure, which we can talk about offline.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I've kind of given a general overview here. Does anybody have any questions? Tina?
Oh, sorry, thanks.
Oh, you came on camera, so I thought you might have had a question.
Yeah, I was still struggling to raise my hand. Thank you. We have a couple of projects that we're not quite at a point of getting the engineer's updated estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Can we hold on to our local discretionary funds for a little bit longer, and then when we're closer to the date, request that allocation? We've done that before, but I wanted to be thoughtful about the new schedule.
Yes, I would say yes. You can wait until later. It's a little bit easier on DCHD staff if people know what they're going to spend their local discretionary on, that we can bundle all of that into one process to put into the tip. But it's not a huge deal if we need to wait till later, and we'd rather we'd rather have the accurate information and just do it once rather than have to do it now and then do it again when you get
What's the
better
cutoff?
information. I think the one thing I would say is just a reminder that our federal funding policy says that any local discretionary funds that are not obligated by September of 2026 will go back into the RFF pot. They'll be use them or lose them. So
What about 24? The local discretionary is going to be stopped in 24.
yes, yeah, I think I said that before you came on this. Local FY24 is the last year of local discretionary. And so what you see as available now is what you've got in terms of local discretionary funding.
26. I was a little confused when you said 24 and then this 26 date. So
right. So you get them in 24. You need to obligate them by September of 26.
okay, so we could continue planning other
So
projects.
it gives you, yeah, it really gives you 3 years to get your funds obligated.
Got it. Thanks.
Sure. And just also a reminder while we're talking about obligation deadlines, those of you who have programmed STBG CARES funding, also called STBG COVID funding, be reminded that the federal deadline, not the DCHC, but the federal deadline to obligate those funds is September 30th, 2024. And if you do not obligate your funding by then, you will lose the funding according to the feds. So please keep that in mind. Anybody else with any questions?
Aaron, when you say obligate, does that mean we have a municipal agreement with DOT for those funds?
That might be, and I think I saw him on here, that might be a Joe Geigley question. What exactly what exactly is meant by obligate, Joe?
For the, which funds was that?
For the STBG CARES funding.
Obligate, typically we look at, you've got the project authorized through the financial system. So you've got a project in there, you've requested authorization from us. I don't believe obligate means fully expended, but the project has to be started. Right.
Does that answer your question, Bergen?
Yeah, and I think I'm good. I just, that like feds and DOT have words that don't necessarily mean anything to the local jurisdiction.
What?
Right.
In FTA world, it means that your award has been made through the tram system.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, this is going to be a lot of people in a really short meeting.
Thanks a lot, Aaron.
Sure. One more reminder that, and it says on the project submission form, in addition to the project application, we do ask you to send your a project budget, as well as, with the fiscal years that you'll be needing your money. We do also ask that you, well, we don't ask, we require that you submit GIS files and a map of your project as well. We'll need those GIS files in order to collect the data for safety, for EJ, and a variety of other criteria that we do the scoring for. So it's very important that you also submit those GIS files. Please don't forget to do that. And those all get sent to Kelly at kelly.flamenco@dchcmpo.org. Also remember, please, our new email addresses that we're using, dchcmpo.org.
Got it.
So Aaron, I did have one more question, I guess.
Yeah, please.
At least as it impacts the city, the city of Durham. So, I mean, we're limited by the 65% total and 40% for any one particular project, but
correct.
At least last year we said we didn't get too detailed in worrying about no more than 40% of the CMAC or the TAP or the ST, that just request what we want, and then MPO will figure out which funding source it fits best based on the request.
Exactly correct. That is correct. Yeah, you don't need to request a particular funding source. We'll look at your application, we'll look at the eligible uses, and we'll find the most appropriate funding source for that. That's an excellent point. And just to be clear, the 40% cap and the 65% cap apply to the funding total, the 5.2 million, not like the individual amount we have for TAP DA or CMAC or STBG or anything like that. So, for example, one project might get all of the CMAC funding, for which we have about 2.3 million, I believe, this year, but still be below the 40% total for the overall RFF budget, as well as the 65%. So yeah, just yeah, that's the explanation for that.
Okay, that's how we're going to proceed.
Great. Just one more thing to remind you, the applications are very similar to what you saw last year. There is one difference, which is we are asking you to put in your local priority points at this time, rather than putting your local priority points on after the scoring. That caused some confusion and some difficulty last year, so we think it'll just be cleaner to do it at the front end this year. So just keep that in mind. Remember, that's 15 points total, no more than 10 points on any one project from your agency. Any other questions?
So if I may, since we're
Yeah,
all together,
please.
there's a few other folks that might be interested in this, so I'll go ahead and ask it.
Okay.
I know Chapel Hill's been doing this as well. We've been taking advantage of opportunities with DOT resurfacing to try to do some road diets and get in bike ped, or at least bike infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious about scenarios that we'll probably come upon soon, where there's some additional infrastructure improvements that will be needed for the project to be successful, work that goes, or costs that go beyond what would be included in resurfacing.
Mm-hmm.
Based on your experience, now that you spend a lot of time looking at these different funding sources, or the direct or local discretionary monies, etc., is there a way to ask for some additional money? And what would be the best way to do that? Would that be using the regional flexible funds, like a safety component, or?
So let me try to repeat it back to you to make sure I'm understanding the scenario. NCDOT is going to do a resurfacing project on ABC Street. And as part of that resurfacing project, y'all are gonna, change the striping. And let's say you're gonna change the striping in a way that it's gonna be a road diet, and you want to put in buffered bike lanes, and you want to put in some vertical protection in the buffered bike lanes, which is not covered under the resurfacing. So you're looking, maybe, is this a pool of money to do that with?
Yeah.
What I would say is it depends on the cost of the project. Our RFF policy says you need a minimum $100,000.
Okay.
So if it's going to be under $100,000, use your local discretionary, because you can do that how you want. If it's over $100,000, that I think is a fine application for the RFF.
Okay.
I would just also say, just be aware, all these funding sources are federal. And if you put $1 federal on a project, you have federalized the entire project. So just keep that in mind.
Okay,
as you're
that's a
doing
good
these.
point. That's a good point. Thanks for that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that would potentially that might screw up the resurfacing if it was a DOT project. So that would be something to check with them before pursuing that.
Right. And
Okay.
Joe, you can tell me if I'm giving bad advice here, but maybe what you do is you do the resurfacing project and then say your vertical protection buffered bike lanes are a separate project. Like they've set it up
Mhm.
all for you, but you do a separate, so you're not making the resurfacing federalized, right?
Yeah.
You're doing the resurfacing and then you're coming back the following week and putting in your buffer bike lanes or something like that, so that you're not creating a burden on NCDOT to federalize the project.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for that. That was helpful.
No, I would agree with that, Aaron, and also you want to make sure that if we're using different sources of funding, that becomes difficult when separating something CMAQ from STP DA. We just got to make sure that we're spending. We can't spend in inappropriate places, right? So if we're mixing CMAQ and DA funds, we can't use CMAQ for resurfacing,
Right.
that part of the project. So from a financial standpoint, it can be a little bit trickier to manage those types of projects.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's another good point. And local discretion, if you're doing something like that, local discretionary is all DA, which is the most flexible federal funding we've got. So that also makes that a little bit simpler. Anything else? Okay. Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, thank you all for your attendance. If you have any questions after today, please don't hesitate to ask. Please send that to both myself and Kelly. My last day with the MPO is Friday, but I'll still be with the city, so I'm still reachable at my city email address. So yeah, direct them to Kelly, but if feel free to thank you all. Feel free to reach out to me if you guys still need anything. But you're in Kelly's very, very capable hands. So
We wish you the best. Sorry to see you go, but wish you all the best.
well, I won't be too far, so I'm looking forward to working with y'all again in the future. Very much. So.
Yeah, we'll miss you, Aaron. Hope to see you in the same places, just in a different role. We all tend to do that.
That is, yeah. Like I said the other day, I'm kind of like mold. You can't quite get rid of me. I just keep coming back. So.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye,
Okay, take care. Bye.